Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and despite being a silver stacker, I've been selling some silver, and let me explain exactly why that is. I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest weaknesses of silver, and I'm in a position where it's probably not a good idea for me to be purchasing any silver. So let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. Curious on your thoughts, as always. The silver stuff, there's always some good debate, so feel free to chime in with your thoughts in the comments, and I'll tell you and explain my business journey for why silver is not a good buy for me at the moment. All right, so I've also, for some visual entertainment, have some silver. You can see this barber quarter in 1909D. Would have been one of the first Denver Mint coins. But today we're going to be talking about why silver is probably not the best for me right now. And if you relate to me in any way, it's probably true that silver is not a great pick for you either. And that circumstance is, do you have a capital intensive business? Do you need your investments to be making money, or the capital that you're investing into different sources to be available, liquid, and basically able to make more money? And in the short term, when I've started to run much more of a coin business as opposed to purely an entertainment channel, the answer has been that silver is probably not the best way for me to park my money outside of when I'm purchasing it to trade it, which is somewhat frequent. But I think that one of the biggest drawbacks when it comes to silver, if there's one thing to take away, I try not to hide this at the end, but then I'll sort of expound upon it as we go along, is, silver does not make anything more. Silver doesn't multiply. It doesn't, yield you any interest. It doesn't provide immediate liquidity. In most cases, there's probably a caveat there, but it's generally not the best store of capital when you need that capital to be available in the near term. So what I mean by that is I've got a bunch of coins in front of me. These were well purchased, but they unfortunately are only going to be worth what somebody will pay for them. And you could probably say, well, doesn't that apply to almost everything? Isn't that the case with basically any purchase that you're making? But there's no short-term interest rate on them. If I was not a business, I have the good fortune, and I think that it's less luck and more like hard work over a long amount of years, but that I've built up this YouTube channel, which allows me to probably reach more people to sell to than the average person probably can reach. For your average person, if you go and purchase a bunch of silver, best bet is going to have to be to sell that back to a coin shop, and probably smart to call around before you do that to the local areas. By the way, let me know what you think this date is. I think it's 1854. But anyways, going to trying to sort through this big group. But I think that, for me, it's silver as an investment generally should be viewed as something much longer term. So when let me put in the stacks of silver that I'm creating here. I think, when I am running a coin business, it's, the nature of it is that, and I don't even have a brick and mortar location. I store a bunch of my expensive stuff in a safety deposit box, and then I'll take out the stuff that I'm about to sell, or that's, not as, things I don't need can be on my person a little bit more. But if I was to go and put in $10,000 in silver, even if I think it's a really good investment, I don't think anybody who's buying $1,000 of silver thinks it's going to turn into 2,000 within the next month. They might have a time horizon that extends a little bit, maybe it extends quite a lot. But I don't think that anybody should be purchasing silver, the same way that somebody might buy some short-term call options, which are probably a really bad idea, or a short-term, shorting some sort of a stock. People buy silver because it's a longer-term store of value that is a bit different from many of the traditional stores of value. And, that there's nothing taking away from that. There's different ways to store value. You might want to have some bonds. I personally own 0 bonds. So, just take what I'm saying with, it's important to understand my perspective. But for many people, bonds can be very sort of a stable return in the longer term. Forget about like what current interest rates are doing at the moment, but say you're like constructing a portfolio for retirement and you want to have some guaranteed income sources, and your cash isn't just sitting there whittled away by inflation to the full extent that it is when you can't have any return on, even if it's 3 or 4% or something like that in a bank. This silver is going to be worth what people are paying, probably 5-10% below. If you're just going to sell to a coin shop, maybe more if you are sort of in a desert in terms of having any fair buyers nearby. Whereas the bonds are immediately, you can liquidate them quickly to anybody around the world via the internet. Silver, I think I really like holding it in person. I think it's something you want to have on you. But if there's any like immediate need to have the cash that's tied up in them, I was watching a few other videos recently where people were like, yeah, I can't find anybody to pay strong money for my silver in the nearby surrounding area. And it's probably going to be tough for those shops to survive, or they may not like grow to the extent that they could if they tried to pay better and then ramp up their volumes. But the silver that somebody has is going to be exactly the same as when they go and try to, eventually, because we're in such a dollar denominated world. And I think that it's improper to assume that we'll get to a silver standard. I think it would be great to have like metal backed forms of currency, but I just don't think that that's anything that's plausible with the way that the world works at the moment. By the way, is this 1918S? That's what I think it is, which is a pretty good find in decent condition, too. Very happy about that. And so, in my position as a coin dealer, and again, I was getting into this, I don't have a brick and mortar shop, but I still want to have, $10,000 available if I try to go and buy a collection or somebody offers something. I mean, it would be awesome if I had 100,000. I don't have anywhere near that ready to go and just drop on some new coins, and that probably means that I then pass up on some of the larger coin dealers, or I can't go and buy coins from the real big dogs who want to have me come and write a check for $20,000 when I walk into their shop. That's something to try to build towards over time. But what I've been realizing is that, well, if I look at the overall, I still earmark a bunch of my money that will go into like a broad, market-based mutual fund. That's like a market tracking index. And the reason that I do that is because I don't think it's good to have all my eggs in one basket, much like I wouldn't want to do silver. But I don't think like 100% silver. I think that probably silver should be a smaller portion of the portfolio than your stocks, for most people at most ages, than your bonds. I mean, it's I'm not doing any investment advice here. I'm just giving my perspective on why, like, okay, I don't actually know I should know the dollar amount of silver that I have, but say I have $5,000 of silver, $15,000 of value of coins, and then $10,000 of cash, and like that's the available capital for my business. To have 16% of that locked up, in silver, from the perspective, that silver is purely there for me to just hope that it appreciates over time. When I might have much more immediate cash needs. And as a coin dealer, you want to be doing as much turn as you can, where you're, selling, you're buying and selling, and say you're making 20%. If you're a really good, if you're very good at buying, maybe you can make 20% in the longer term, or, 30% would be even better. But often, full clarity. A lot of people are working on margins of like 4, 5, 6, 7% in the coin business. If they're doing enough volume, to have 16% of the available capital in your business tied up in investment silver is just really going to limit that. I mean, that's like you go from having, like $25,000 to $30,000, and when $15,000 is in inventory, and you need to have some inventory on hand, it's not like you can liquidate all of that and have, it's also a problem if you have no coins and you're a coin dealer. For the most part, I mean, it's probably not the worst problem to have. But what I'm saying is, much like the coin business, there's plenty of other businesses where, because of the switching and like the transaction costs, like it's not reasonable to, and even if you can, but first off, it's probably not reasonable to expect to be able to get the same amount that you're paying. So say you're buying $100 of silver, you might have to pay 100, and I mean these days I have to pay like 110% of the melt value from, because I don't really buy from the public, I buy from dealers. I have not found dealers to sell me at melt anywhere basically. If I sold it back to them, maybe if I sold it right back to them, they'd give me a refund on the spot. But if I sold it to them 2 days later, they're probably going to offer me, maybe if I'm doing a lot of volume with them, 100% or 95%, but more likely going to be 85 to 90% on like a small amount of junk silver. And so say you have a car payment that's coming up. There's just like a lot of different payments and a lot of different things that people have due, where if you're looking to do a short-term gamble, even if it's like the same thing I would say about stocks, but stocks are a little bit easier to liquidate. Like, that's not the function of silver. That's not the right way to go about it. Now, when I think about the silver that's in my investment portfolio, which I view as much different than sort of, I feel like that, let me rephrase that. There's silver, an amount of silver that I want to have in my investment portfolio that is completely separate from the capital that I'm putting into my coin business. That I'm not going to touch, because I do think that silver is something that I want to have money in beyond just whatever's in my inventory. But sort of mentally, I think it's important to separate what is an investment and what is part of the inventory. And as I look at some of sort of the in-between stuff where it's like I just had a little bit, because I grew up working in a coin shop, I had a little bit more silver than I probably needed to have, then it's like, hey, you can really believe in silver, you can really believe in all types of investments, but if you're over allocated towards that, you can still be just as much of a believer, but because of like the overall construction of your portfolio, of your cash and liquidity, it makes more sense to do some divestitures of that type of material. And so that's basically been, what I'm contending with and figuring out how to liquidate. The stuff in front of me, I purchased from a coin dealer, and I'm still buying silver. I had to pay a solid premium for this stuff because it's premium silver items, nice 1920, or not that nice, but 1928D Standing Liberty quarter, solid date barbers, even a few Standing Liberty quarters and other denominations. Like, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm very happy with the decisions that I'm making, and I am in a position that I think it's important to like continue this discussion where me buying more silver is really not my first priority, because I know it's actually not the best thing that I can be doing. I'm continuing to sell my silver where I feel it makes sense. The stuff that's a bit more premium, I'm much more willing to sell than some of the stuff that I just feel is like low dollar cost silver that I've purchased, again, separate from the business. But when I look and see, okay, I have too much silver relative to how many stocks I have, relative to, again, my very non-existent bond allocation, but say relative to the U.S. stocks versus the international stocks versus the large cap versus the small cap, that's what I'm thinking about. So again, not investment advice. This is just like a good case study in a situation where buying more silver is not the best thing that I can do. And I figured it would be worth sharing because I think it's always important to have a good perspective on silver. Again, I like it. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying that you want to be very discerning in how you view it and go about your silver stacking journey. Thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to visit our website, treasuretown.com, to stay up to date on everything going on the channel and possibly get some great deals on coins and collectibles. We look forward to seeing you on our future videos, and best wishes until then.